So when we move our attention away from the normal things that we're distracted by, then this is allowed to come up. Just more awareness. Our awareness expands and moves to more than these distractions, more than the superficial levels that we've been living in a conditioned life. The dream world is extremely limited compared to what is here. It's like less than 1% of what's here. And that's just in the material, physical realm. It's infinitesimal compared to what's here. So when we let go of these distractions, let go of this attachment, we're able to experience much more. Because much more is here. It's nothing new. Nothing has been added. It's always been here. The dream just hid it from us. Our attachment and attention attracted to these superficial areas to such a degree that we can't experience what else is here. We're not aware of what's here. And the role of a spiritual teacher is this: not to teach anything, not to add anything. If anything, it's to take away these distractions so that what's really here can be seen, much more of what's here. And a spiritual teacher does this by living this way. That's all, just living this way, living in this expanded awareness. And in that way, it's an expression of this greater truth. It's an expression of the ocean. And it's the same expression as you are. So it's a reflection of you. A spiritual teacher is a reflection of you. Not something different, not a person, not someone with some information. A mirror of what you truly are. That's an important role, to be a mirror. To be a mirror, you have to be empty of yourself, so that the only thing reflected is truth. So the job of a spiritual teacher is just to live awake. That's all. Words that come out, all that, that's fine. But the important thing is to be a reflection of truth. A reflection of the truth that you are. And that's all a transmission is. It's not something that the teacher gives or brings. It's a reflection of the truth of you. And where do you feel this resonance? In you. It's not in the teacher. It's in you. It's in the teacher too. But you feel it in you. This opening. Thoughts may come in and try and distract from this. Just as in noting it can, we can say noting, we can say thinking, and then all of a sudden we get lost in that thought. And then if we do the practice, we come back to just thinking again and stop being lost in that thought, stop being distracted by this thought. Thoughts are very distracting. We've been conditioned to be distracted by thoughts. There's great freedom when that stops, when thoughts no longer can distract us. They're always just thoughts. And that's what it is to live awake. The distractions of the world don't distract us anymore. It's not that they disappeared. Thoughts still come, feelings, people talking to us, all kinds of things happen in the world. That doesn't change, but they don't distract us anymore. We can stay living in this greater sense of being, this greater reality. We can stay always being aware of the ocean. And we're aware of the waves too, but we're never not aware of the ocean. That's what enlightenment is. That's what being awake is. And without realizing it, that's always what you are. That's what you've always been. Before there was even a body, that's what you are. That's what you are. After the body goes, that's what you are. Nothing has changed, not in a millennia. You've always been this. Many people don't realize this. They go 80, 90 years without ever realizing this. But after the body passes, they realize it. You know? You can only live in an illusion just for so long, possibly a lifetime. Many people will live in illusion their entire lifetime. Most people will. But after that lifetime's over, they're back in truth again. And a human lifetime is a very, very short time. For an eternal self, a human lifetime of 80 or 90 years is like a cat nap. It's not even a cat nap. It's not even a blink of an eye. It's much shorter than that. Part of this ocean is your eternal self. Not an individual self, just the ocean itself. As you, as what you've always been. Right now, for 80 or 90 years, there's a body too, you know? There's a body, and we can be an expression of this through this body, which is part of the purpose of this life. That's what a spiritual teacher does. It's an expression of the ocean, realizing that it's not a body, it's not a mind, it's not a history, it's not a past, it's not a name, it's not a form, it's not any of that. It's just the ocean expressing itself through this form. And sometimes through words, the ocean can hear through other forms, can hear itself. Can hear itself speaking. And that awakens something. The truth of its being, what it is, the truth of what it is. And at that point, the attention on the body, the mind, thoughts, feelings, sensations becomes much less important. Where before it was 100%, it comes to 1%. It's there, but it's just not that important. To the ocean, to the infinite and eternal, it's just something arising in the moment, momentary. All our distractions are momentary, not permanent truth, just things that arise in the moment. It doesn't mean that they're not true in that moment. The waves are true in the ocean, but they're not the whole thing. The ocean is not separate from a wave, but the waves are very temporary. Very temporary. Even when we see the wave, it's changing all the time while we're looking at it. And the ocean remains unchanging. There are spiritual teachers that I've seen, many, who have a little bit of a different path. They express truth in some way, but they're also very interested in the distractions. They're still attached to the distractions, and they teach about the distractions too. There's one teacher who, I'm not going to name names, but he's an excellent salesman. A lot of these teachers are very good salesmen, or women. They have a knack for that. But living awake, they don't. They're not living awake at all. And yet it's very attractive to a mind that's used to distractions, that's used to a teacher as somebody who's giving them some information to help them have a better relationship, or make more money, or things like that. Have a little bit less suffering in their life, have some more health, have better feelings, better sensations, better thoughts. But these are all distractions from truth, distractions from what's real, distractions from the ocean. And so these types of teachers are also distractions from the ocean, distractions from truth, in the guise that they're bringing truth. That's why they're good salespeople. They don't know this themselves, because they're also attached to this, attached to their relationships. So they can be teaching, and sometimes some teachers can open to truth during the time they're teaching, but in the rest of their life they don't. They say, okay, now's my teaching time. I'm going to be open to this, and now's my time to be a husband or a wife or a parent, or go to work at this particular job, or watch porn. Whatever they're attached to, whatever they're distracted by, that's their life. Yeah, I don't see that as being a spiritual teacher. Because a spiritual teacher is an expression of truth and a reflection to students. It demands a meticulousness, a commitment, not just while teaching, but always 24/7, never not being like this. And it's not a sacrifice to be like that. It's wonderful. Why not live awake all the time? It's much better. I think everyone knows that. But sometimes the distractions and the attachments are too strong, and they haven't been able to overcome them. Their awakening experience has not been strong enough to outshine this. When it outshines it, distractions are not distracting. They're so unimportant, so small compared to this truth, that they just don't distract anymore. But we all go through a process. Some people wake up, very, very few, so that their initial awakening is so powerful that it completely outshines the world, themselves, and everything else. And that never comes back again. Eckhart Tolle was one that this happened to. Ramana Maharshi was one. It didn't happen to the Buddha. He went through a time of a process, step by step, as most people do. And the awakening is no less. In fact, it's better for teaching because we know the stages. We know what it's like to go into freedom and then come back into illusion again, over and over again. We know what that's like. We've experienced that. And we know what it's like when that stops, when that ends, when we live in truth and distractions can't distract us anymore. They just don't have any juice in them. The triggers are not triggers. They're just things arising and passing in the world. And our faith and trust and being in something that's unchanging is preferable. You know, we just always choose it over and over and over again. Anytime a distraction comes up, our choice is not to pay attention to it. It's not even a conscious decision anymore. It just happens. So there is an end when you go through this process of shifting and the yo-yo of having awakening experiences and freedom and then coming back into suffering again. But the attention needs to be on truth above everything else. It doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship. You can have a relationship, but the attention is not on being a husband or wife. It's on truth. You can have children, but the attention is not on being a parent. It's on truth. You can have a job, but the attention is not on what your job is, but on truth. Always. That's a safe way to approach living. And you may fail and go, oh no, I'm a parent. Okay, yeah, well then just come back again. My attention is on truth. And you see that it makes you a better parent. Even though you don't feel like you're a parent, you're just an expression of truth. It makes you a better spouse. Even though your attention is not on that, it's on truth. What does truth do in this moment? What does truth do if your child is having trouble in school or gets in trouble in some way? What does truth do? Because truth is very wise. The ocean is very, very wise. And it knows everything. It knows what's happening in the child completely. It knows exactly what to do always. You surrender yourself, your role, and just allow truth to express through you, through this body-mind. That's all a spiritual teacher does. Allows truth to express through this body-mind, gives its life over to truth, surrenders its life, everything, to truth, and lets truth run the show. And this same truth is in you, always in you. That's why it's hard to find it, to discover it, because it's always here. It's part of our biological system to be attracted to things that are new, changing, loud. They get our attention. Something that's always here, truth, awareness, space, These things don't attract our attention because they're always here. They're not new. They're not coming and going. But when we let go of the things that do come and go, the distractions, the things that are not permanent and unchanging, then the unchanging arises in our attention, our awareness. And the more time we spend in this awareness, in this state of the unchanging, the more this becomes our home, our natural way of being. So when someone teaches about a better way to have a relationship, a better way to parent, a better way to have a career, or a better way to have prosperity, or all these things that we see in spiritual teachers, it's a distraction from this. In the guise of presenting truth, it's presenting a distraction, a better way to live in the world of a dream. And yes, that can happen. You know, you can learn something to be a little bit of a better parent or spouse, or have a little more money or success. There are many ways to learn to function better in the dream world, but it doesn't help us become free of the dream world, to live in truth. It doesn't help us live in truth. Truth is the end of the dream. When we're no longer so attached to the dream that we keep coming back to it. That's living in truth. My root teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, it took years before I really had a teacher that I fully surrendered my life to. And I saw a lot of teachers, but, well, I think we've all heard about kind of scandals and things that happen in spiritual communities with gurus and masters and different teachers like this. And I had heard about that, in the 60s, there was a lot of that happening. There still is. It hasn't really changed because these teachers are not meticulous, they're wonderful teaching because when they're teaching, they can open to truth, but then in their daily life, they're not. And unfortunately, a lot of students take that part and they live like that, so their lives are lost and they're distracted. And Thich Nhat Hanh, I just felt he wasn't like that. He's a monk for one, and he's meticulous about this. I mean, right at the beginning, he said, I teach with my life. That's the most important teaching I have. And if there is any moment in my life that I'm not living in this way, I will stop teaching. That was his feeling. And it made an impression on me. Yeah. A few years ago, I was teaching and I was very open in the space, not any different than now, really. I mean, when I was teaching, I was very, very open. I was open to just letting this flow through. I didn't know any other way to do it other than completely surrender. And before that, I was healing people the same way. It was just, this healing just flowed through. I had no idea what to do. I had not even any interest in doing it. It just happened. But it happened through this complete surrender. But then in my daily life, I wasn't surrendered that way. I still was a person. I still was someone that, thought, had a lot of I thoughts. Is this good for me or not good for me? What's going to happen with this? All these kinds of I thoughts that most people have. And after a while of teaching like this, I felt it was compromising the teaching, that some of it must be coming through. Even though I didn't think it was, I felt that it might, if I'm not. And why not live like that? Why can't I live the way I'm teaching or healing all the time in every moment of my life, And so that, for years, I thought about that, like, why can't I live like this all the time? How come this showed up? It was nothing dramatic. There was no scandals or anything. It was just this I thought, and I wasn't free. I wasn't living completely free without an I thought, just an expression of truth all the time. So it felt like I needed to have a long silent retreat and stop teaching while I did this, stop any contact with humans really, and just go into this isolation for a period of time, which I thought was going to be 3 months, which is kind of standard in spiritual traditions, to do 3 months solo silent retreats, like in a cabin or something. And I decided I would try and see if I could do it in Sedona, where I knew a lot of people. Was it possible to be totally isolated from everybody for that period of time? And it was, I had to arrange it and tell people, and it worked out. And it lasted for 7 months. And during that time, a cleaning happened, like an inner house cleaning, nothing that I did. I mean, essentially, I was just kind of living in bliss, basically. It was wonderful. And, but something was working. I could feel it working. I can't say exactly what it was or how it was doing it, but it was kind of cleaning me out. Yeah. It's important to be honest about this, because unfortunately, a lot of the spiritual teachers that have these scandals and these things happen where they manipulate students for sex and things like that, they're not really aware that this is happening. Somehow they convince themselves that this is a good thing, or it's okay, or it's part of the awakened thing. Or crazy wisdom is one of the things in Buddhism. They say, oh, it's crazy wisdom. To be drunk all the time when I'm not teaching is crazy wisdom. And they can call it whatever they want, but that's not what it is. It's attachment. It's distraction. It's not living in truth. It's not living awake, is what it is. During teaching, awake consciousness can be there. And after that, no. And this is kind of what happens to us. It's not that unusual, because in our process of having a meditation where we have a great insight and we feel amazing peace, and this can last for days. Or if we're in retreat, we can go for like 3 or 4 days or 5 days or the whole retreat like that, just living in this space of truth and peace and freedom, bliss and love. And then something happens, we come back, we go back to work, and somebody says something to us or insults us or something, or that we think they did. And then all of a sudden we're triggered and we're back with the I thought again. They shouldn't have said that to me. I'm very important. Don't they know who I am? It's so unfair, or whatever we're thinking. It's all I thoughts. And we get triggered back into this. And then it happens again. We go in retreat, we're free of that. Then we come back again, on and on. And this is what they're doing too. This is what they're doing too. They're teaching and they're feeling this great expansion, and they're in touch with truth. They're expressing truth. And then they come back into their life and they're not anymore. Something triggers them. This attachment, happens, this compulsion, this I thought comes. I need a drink. It's okay to have a drink. I should have another one. Whatever they're thinking, I don't know. It's all ego thoughts. It's just the standard, typical ego thoughts that arise. But this doesn't make a good role model, you know? And life always expresses truth. Life always expresses truth. So eventually these scandals come up. The community, you know, falls apart. People are hurt and wounded, and they're kind of disgraced, and, you know, and they become the urban legend or whatever, you know, they become something that people read about or hear about. And it has a damaging effect on the spiritual path, on spiritual teachers when this happens too, because people become suspicious and they don't want to surrender. And surrendering to a spiritual teacher, guru, or Zen master is not a bad thing to do. It's a traditional part of the spiritual path, because we have to surrender completely, you know, and it's hard to surrender to nothing, right? In my case, I surrendered to God, you know. I didn't have a concept of God, but just something bigger than me, you know, that was good enough. It's bigger than this limited I sense. It's something bigger than this I sense. So I surrender to that. And to Thich Nhat Hanh as well. You know, I did. I surrendered to him completely. And it's this surrendering that's important. It doesn't matter what it is too, because Thich Nhat Hanh was a good teacher. He was very just meticulous, you know, and honest. He never took all that devotion and love to himself and didn't think like, oh yeah, it's me. Look how great I am. It didn't happen with him ever, you know. He made sure that it didn't, which is why he practiced so much all the time. You know, his meditation didn't stop, it just increased after awakening. To be meticulous, you know, to be an expression of truth, not a person, not an identity, just an expression of a universal, infinite, unlimited truth. That's all. Nothing personal about it. And to that, it's okay, because your surrender is to truth. It's just expressing itself in this teacher. That's all. It's the same truth. It has nothing to do with the teacher. It's just an expression of truth. The same truth that you are.